has gone as far as declaring the crossover dead. Welcome to the first episode on my journey towards crossunder mastery. In this episode, we'll be covering why I use the word crossunder versus crossover to describe this mechanic, why I want to master the crossunder, and what you might get out of the series. And stay tuned for the end for our first cue. Let's not waste any time and get into why I use the term crossunder versus crossover. Well, there's three reasons. The first is the look-feel paradox, which means something looks one way but feels another way. In the case of the crossover, it looks like the leg is crossing over, but it should feel like you are crossing under. And we'll get into exactly what that means with this Braden Point clip here. First, if we pause at the end of the crossover, his foot that was in back is now crossed over his foot that was in front, hence the name crossover. But let's rewind and see how he got there. So at the start of the crossover, his front foot is about right under the midline of his body. If he were to cross this leg over, he would have to bring his back foot across the midline to the other side. But that's not what we see. Instead, his front foot works under his body and his back foot simply steps in front. And that's what gives him the look of a crossover, but he got there by crossing under. Hence, we have this paradox. In addition, if we isolate the back leg and strictly focus our attention on it, there's no exaggerated step over. It's more of a tiny step in front and it stays very low to the ice. It most certainly does not cross midline. That leads us to the second point, which is the crossunder is the most important and difficult part of the mechanic and should be the focus and reflected in the name. So in this clip, he's coming around the net and he needs a little bit extra speed to stay with the play. So what does he do? He doesn't cross over, he crosses under. It's really subtle, but if you pay close attention to the back leg first, it barely lifts off the ground and is just placed in front of his body. On the other hand, the front leg noticeably moves back and under his body, and as soon as he finishes that cross under stride, he gets this little boost of speed. So that gives us a good indication that the cross under is what is providing him with this speed. And of course, we see the same thing at full speed as well. And what we see is that he covers more distance with the cross under stride versus the crossover. So if we first pay attention to the crossover stride, it takes him from about the top of the MasterCard logo right about to the middle versus the cross under stride, which takes him from the middle all the way to the red line. So that's a significant difference in the distance covered in the same or similar amount of time, i.e. more speed. Coupled with that is that the cross under is way more difficult than the crossover. It requires you being very comfortable on your outside edge and being able to lean to the outside of your body, which is a lot more challenging. But that also means that if you have a good cross under, you have no problem with a little crossover step needed. The same cannot be said in reverse. So overall, the cross under is a better description of what the actual mechanic entails, and it should be reflected in the name. Finally, the last point and why the difference in vocabulary might matter. What happens when you tell a kid or any player that today you're going to work on your crossovers and you want to see their best, most technical crossover? What are they likely to do? Well, they're probably going to have these exaggerated crossovers with these big steps that are not providing any benefit. That's what I would have done. Versus if you call it a cross under, their emphasis immediately changes to closer to what the best natural players are doing. For these reasons, I prefer using the term cross under versus crossover to describe the entire mechanic. Personally, I don't care what you call this mechanic. What's important is that we all understand what this mechanic is and how it is performed. That being said, having a common language is easier and more practical to communicate. So on this channel going forward, I'll be referring to this movement as the cross under. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get into the series starting with why I want to master the cross under and what may be in it for you. Well, the cross under is a mechanic that has plagued me and I'm sure a lot of you for a long time. I have this love-hate relationship. I love the idea of being able to fly and wheel like McDavid out there, but I hate the fact that I can't and I've struggled to improve it. The reason I started my mechanics journey and got into skating mechanics was because of the cross under. I was frustrated that I couldn't get it and I didn't know what to do. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. For me, it was the forehand side. All I wanted to do was be as comfortable crossing under my forehand side as my backhand side, but I just couldn't get it. I didn't know what to do. I scavenged the internet, watching all the how-to cross under videos under the sun, but nothing seemed to do the trick. I had breakthroughs that inevitably fell flat, and I was extremely lost until I found Train 2.0. I joined in the hopes that they'll have something, anything that could help me with my crossunders, and the rest is history. Now that I have a pretty good understanding of the mechanic and help from Coach Frank at Training 2.0, along with everyone at Training 2.0, it's time to execute, which is always the hardest part. And I'll be sharing all my insights and tips that I come across so you can improve or help others improve their crossunders and not feel so lost with this challenging and complex mechanic. Which leads us to the first cue of the series. It's not a fancy cue, nor is it even specifically related to the crossunder, but it is really important as it's the main posture cue we use at Training 2.0, which is the Crosby crevice. I have a quick short that goes into more detail on the Crosby crevice. The link will also be in the description, and feel free to check out the comment section on that video for more detailed information as well. The Crosby crevice is the spot right here, tight between your torso and waist at your hip. The biggest benefit to having a tight Crosby crevice when crossing under is that it keeps your hands central to your body, so it's not pulling you in any direction, which allows your posture to be aligned and giving you a feel for a true lean. Imagine if your hand was out to the side, it'd be slightly pulling you to the side. Same thing if your hand was too far forward or below. In order to counter that pull, we stabilize ourselves through contracting our core, ankles, amongst other things. So by having your hand tight in the Crosby crevice, you can be more balanced with less tension. The best place to work on your Crosby crevice would be stick handling, and I recommend you do it either in front of a mirror or film yourself so you can get direct feedback to improve. Now let's take a look at my execution on the Crosby crevice. Let's start with my backhand. My crevice looks pretty good, but I do think it could be improved a bit. I see my hand is drifting forward a bit, especially near the end. That's not awful, since if I was stick handling, it probably would do that anyways, but it is something to tidy up. Looking at my forehand side, which is my weaker side, I also got a good crevice. The hand is tight to my body. One thing I am noticing though is that my bottom hand is very far away, and I think that may be adding unnecessary tension in my system. So that's something to look into. My overall execution on the Crosby crevice is an 8 out of 10. So I'm ready to move on, and next episode we'll get a brand new cue. The Crosby crevice is a really important cue, but it's not the root of my problems, and it's likely not the root of your problems as well. But it is the starting point that makes working on every other mechanic that much easier. If your posture is good, it will set you up for success, and everything else will come much more naturally. My biggest problems that I foresee is shin angle, which means getting the knee forward in front of the toe, and rockering and slicing the ice with the toe of the skate. But we'll get to all that eventually. The first thing is always addressing posture. That's why it's my first cue, and it's the first cue that you should work on or teach as well.
Our Train 2.0 Plus membership is for players that want to get better and want to do so with a science-based approach. And they want to do it in a way that is rooted in the technological advancements found in video feedback, but also sticks and skates and a lot of different sports science stuff that is coming out recently. So if you want to get access to all of that, how to improve your mechanics, how to improve how they translate to a game, I invite you to join the Train 2.0 Plus membership. So click the link and access the free training.